Hello and welcome to the Home Business Podcast. Rohan, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Today we are excited to have another guest on the podcast, another member of the community. Alfredo, welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thank you for having me.
Where are you from, Alfredo?
I'm from Italy. I live close to Milan, and I live in different parts of Italy. But let's say right now my home it's in the north of Italy.
Okay, very nice. Well, thank you for taking the time. And thank you to today's sponsor of the podcast, Home Business Cloud by Nabu Casa. Easily access your local Home Business instance remotely for a small monthly fee that supports the Home Business, ESP Home, and ZWave.js projects. Configuration is done via the user interface, so there's no fiddling with router settings, SSL certificates, or any YAML. Alfredo, I'm very interested to hear about your story, what your day-to-day life is, but how did you get here today? What sort of got you into home automation?
Yeah, I mean, my background, like, I'm a developer. I'm a nerd, even more than a developer, okay? And so I would say home automation is a kind of a almost necessary step in your journey in like playing with technology and discovering new technologies. And in particular, I think it was like almost 4 years ago, because it was pre-pandemic. We with my wife we decided to buy a new house. And I said, this is the right moment to start doing something new and great, because I always had this like in my head, yes, I should automate something. I want to move from the digital world to the virtual world. But when you don't own a house, you just have a limited amount of things you can do. And also, to be honest, at the time I also had 2 kids, and so my free time was totally dedicated for the family. But then I said, this is a once in lifetime occasion, so let's try to go into home automation in a serious way.
Yeah. And so did you build a house, or did you bought a pre-existing house and they got to automate it?
No, I didn't build, but it was, they were the house where I am now was in front of the house where it was before. So I basically saw it building every single day, and also had some degrees of freedom to decide how to do things.
Nice.
That's very cool. So you moved into this house, and then what happened? So then you're like, okay, let's.
What happened? I had different fights with electricians just to start, because I tried different things in the previous house, okay, in order to be prepared, because you need, it's not something you can start from scratch in the new house. So I said, okay, even if it's temporary, even if it's just a playground, let's start building something in my current house while the new one is being built. And so I tried, and this is where I discovered Home Assistant, when I set up my first things, like smart things all around. And then also I consumed a lot of videos on things you can do when you buy a new house in order to have a proper smart home. So I learned, when you say, oh, come on, I could have done the moment the house was building. Luckily, I had very few moments now, because I consumed a lot of videos in the past that, allow me to understand what to do in order to better plan my smart home. Okay. Unfortunately, the electricians weren't so, let's say, into home automation, let's put it this way. And so hey, can you please do this? Oh, it's not necessary. No, yes, it's necessary. Can you build a bigger house, a bigger box to put in the wall? But why? You have just a couple of switch. Yes, I have a couple of switch, but I want to put other couple inside, and so I need to have space. Oh, can you put a cable here? Oh, a cable. Why do you need a cable in this room? Or why do you need a power plug in this side of the wall? All these kind of things. And so
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, but luckily we arrived to a point where they were happy. I was happy. It wasn't too expensive, because you pay every single change you made to the house. And right now I would say I consider my setup a decent one. You can always do better. You can always discover something new after the fact. But at least, for example, I brought Ethernet into the garage. And this saved me saved me from many head hatches, because I was able to put an access point there, and from the access point I had Wi-Fi connectivity, and so I was able, for example, to put a Zigbee device there connected through Wi-Fi to my Home Assistant, because the Zigbee network wasn't able to arrive directly to the garage. So I was able to do all this kind of stuff.
Nice. So in Italy, is it like I know you mentioned electricians and stuff. Like, for example, Phil has a requirement where he can't touch anything electrical without basically an electrician's help. Do you guys have a similar rule there?
Yes and no. I mean, if you depends how much you want to risk. Okay, for example, I have a house insurance. Okay, if I'm the one changing things in the house, touching stuff, and I'm not a certified electrician, of course, if something happens, the house insurance can say, "Hey, Alfredo, sorry, you did something you should haven't done, so we won't pay you back."
Yeah. Okay, so it's similar to me then.
Yes.
It's allowed as long as you don't screw up.
Yeah, and to be honest, like again, I told you I'm a nerd, and I feel
Yeah.
way better in the digital world, in the world of bits, than in the world of atoms. And so, if I
Yes.
can avoid touching something or like doing connections, it's way better for me. So yes, it's like with one of the electrician, it was like a trade-off. I told him how to do home automation, at least the basic steps, and in agreement, he installed for me a couple of devices in my house. Okay, so it was like a trade. Okay, I won't pay you, but I will pay. I won't pay you in money. I will pay you in knowledge, because this knowledge is very pertinent for your job, and probably tomorrow you can have one specific skill set which allow you to be better than other electricians on the market. And so we had all this kind of trade-off. And this is also where the idea of, probably I should start teaching more assistants and like sharing home assistant to everyone. And this is where the idea came from.
Nice. And so that's what you're going around and teaching everyone about home assistant now.
Exactly. Because it's like, it's also part of my job to like allow people to better understand how to use technology. I'm working the DevRel team in Google. And so DevRel is like this very nice part of a dev world where you don't only know the technology, you should also know the people and how they interact with your technology, how you can make the technology understandable from their point of view, and how you can learn from them how they are using the technology in order to improve your product. And so this learning element has always been part of my like career, let's say, and extending also to home assistant wasn't so complex, but the idea came from the interaction I had with the electrician when we exchange like service for knowledge instead of service for money.
Yeah. So you're able to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to teach you how to do this in home automation. You give me some stuff. And then you're like, okay, well, I can actually show more people how to do this. And
yeah, because he was like, at the beginning, he didn't believe it was possible to do what I asked him to do. And it was the same with the gardener, because, I also put like sprinklers in the garden.
Nice,
and instead of spending like hundreds of thousands on, smart stuff, I simply bought 5 Shelly devices. I put very dumb like valves, and the gardener will say, "Oh, what are you doing?" Yeah, I'm connecting, and if I press this button here on my phone, now it starts. Wow, it's incredible. Okay,
yeah.
Because he was used to very complex systems with a lot of things you have to do, and instead, when I show him, "Hey, it's just a button. You need just to press a button. It's just a switch. Nothing more complex than that." You say, "Oh, this is like the very first time I see something so easy to automate the garden to this extent."
Yeah. That makes complete sense. And it's like, it's one of those things where you kind of share the love, and it's cool because it sounds like it's mutually beneficial for you, right? Like you use the example of the electrician where you're like, hey, you teach me, or you do this for me and I'll teach you, right? And which is really nice. So you talked about obviously getting electricians to do stuff around the house. What did you do? What are some of the things that you have, sensors or whatever that you've put, and or what's smart?
Yeah, I started with a plan. Like, what's the priority I want to automate? And then what would be nice, what would be nicer, and so on and so forth. So for me, the topmost priority was use of electricity, because in this house I have solar panels, and so I wanted to be aware of my energy consumption and how I can better use it, like together with the solar panels and other settings I can improve. So the very first thing was like power plugs. Automate the understanding the consumption and automate how different things are working together. For example, like one of the automation I'm most proud of is during summer, because there is a lot of sun. In Pavia, Milano is not known to be the sunniest city in Italy. Generally, you go to the south, not to the north. So here, let's say with the panels I have on my rooftop, I can be independent in terms of energy from March to end of September. This is where the production of the panels covers the energy consumption of the house. Okay, the other month I can only optimize, but there isn't too much to optimize because, to be honest, some days the production is like a couple of kilowatts, 3 kilowatts, and it's basically useful maybe to run my computer and, the access points. But then from March to September, I have a good enough amount of energy produced, and so I want to optimize its consumption. And for example, the AC conditioning, when there is a lot of sun and there is a lot of production, I lower the temperature, the desired temperature for doing air conditioning, because I can produce more without being sustainable, like while being sustainable. And then the house got colder, but this cold can stay also for moments where I don't have a great house production. Instead, in the days, even in summer, with there is a little bit cloudy or the energy production is not great, the house temperature is higher, and so there is less energy consumption to cool it. And this is like one of the first, let's say, slightly more complex automation I was really proud of. Like, hey, yes, I was able to use the power of the sun for my needs.
So you're sort of like shifting your house being like, you need to cool the house down. So you're saying, okay, when electricity is free and I'm generating more, cool the house right down. So then that lasts like as a little mini fridge for your house for the days that it's not going to be as energy efficient. I really like that.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. And again, I'm assuming your house just like in line with pretty much not North America, your house concrete and whatever, so it insulates better than
this is a brand new house.
Here.
So at least the person that sold us the house was very proud about the quality of the isolation of the house from windows and walls and everything.
Yeah.
And I have to say it's pretty decent. I mean, there are days where I don't need to start the AC because the house is like cool to 20 something and stays for the whole day. Or for example, during the winter when we leave the house, maybe because we have a travel or we go far, the house never go below 15 degrees Celsius.
Wow,
even if
great.
outside is like -1, -2, so goes below zero.
So
when the house is alone, the temperature doesn't go below 15.
Wow. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Rohan, how jealous are you right now?
I know, right? It's here. It's like if my heater goes out, I'm an ice cube. So, that's awesome. So, one of the things that you mentioned in your notes, Alfredo, to us is when you built Home Assistant and you did all this, you kind of followed the home lab philosophy. I think I know what that is because I do follow a lot of home lab stuff, but for some of our listeners that might not know, what is that? And actually, I'm curious, what does that mean to you specifically, right? So, when you say you built a Home Assistant using a home lab philosophy, what did you do?
Yeah, I mean, of course, this is connected to my personal value, and this is also why it was kind of a perfect match between myself and Home Assistant. The moment I explored what were the possibilities to automate my house. Okay, Home Assistant since the very beginning, even before the creation of the Open House Foundation, the Open Home Foundation, it was about privacy, choice, and sustainability, and especially the privacy part. I really care about this aspect, and for me, it's like unbelievable that in order to turn on a light, I need to send a ping somewhere else in the rest of the world, and then another signal comes from this far location in the world back to my house, instead of like going a couple of meters from where is the switch and where is the house. Exactly. And also the fact that, why potentially someone should check on me how many times I turn on off my lights, how many energy I consume. If I want to give this information away, okay, it's my choice, but I don't have to give this information away. And so the possibility to do everything locally it was like really really connected me with Home Assistant philosophy, and also like the sustainability. Like you don't need to change things every 2 years, 3 years, simply because the company doesn't support the objects anymore and want to keep selling products. Like if you spend money, it's yours. You need to keep control on how you're using the things you want to use. And so these elements of Home Assistant convinced me to jump into Home Assistant in I think it was 2019 when I first started with Home Assistant. At that time, it was still very different from what it is today. But I said, I'm a developer. It's Python code. I really like the values and I really like the community, because at the time there were also like a forum, different other ways to access the Home Assistant knowledge. Say it will work, because an house is a project is for the long term. You don't change your home automation system every 1 year or 2 years, like you change framework when you code or like
exactly.
ID or other stuff. Okay, so house is for the long term, and I got the feeling this is a project for the long term. 6 years after, I'm still here. I'm very happy, and so I think it's still it was a right choice. Let's see for the future, but I have very good expectation for the future. Back to the Home Lab, the question you made me. Home Lab reflect this exact same philosophy. Like build your own stuff in order to keep your data, in order to be able to make your choice. Of course, knowledge is what you put on the plate, because you don't build a home lab if you don't have knowledge, if you don't know how install a server, how to maintain it, how to install the different programs, security, and many other things. So it's a passion I have. And so I say, this is my passion. Why not using it also for myself and for my private life, not only for my work life? And this is where I start building this home lab. I say, okay, Home Assistant is a perfect match, if a perfect piece in this puzzle, when I can build my stuff, I keep privacy, I maintain control, and I can totally decide where to go.
Yeah, and that's a nice philosophy, right? And yeah, so it's kind of in line with exactly what I was thinking you were thinking, right? Like self-host stuff, keep it in the house, keep it. You don't need to send your, I don't know, if it's finances, for example, you don't need to send that to somebody, or if it's your home automation. Like, how many times did I turn on this light switch? I think that's the example you used earlier, right?
Alfredo, as you said that example, I just had this image in my mind of a company like putting rate limits on how many times you could actually change a light switch, right? And then charging every time you flick the switch, right? Like it's possible with when you have to send that data out of your home and then back into the home to do it, right?
Yeah. It's to be honest, I don't think it will happen, but there are already examples of products. I don't know, some sort of rings. You have the very basic information, and it's about your data, your biometric data. But if you want to access to all of them, or export them, or get higher level insights, you have to pay a premium. You have to pay a premium price.
Yeah.
Why? It's my data. I understand you are putting your knowledge and your skills to give me higher level insights. I can pay this service. I'm okay to pay this service, but I don't want to pay to export my data out of the device. I don't want to pay to decide where to store my data. Okay, you're offering me cloud service. Great, this is a service. It shouldn't be free. Okay, the usual philosophy. If it's free for you, probably you are the product. So I'm okay in paying any kind of service I'm using for some provider. Okay, but I'm not okay in not having choice. And Home Assistant has always given me choice on what to do.
So there's an aspect of transparency there too, right? Where it's like, what are you doing with my data, right? So like I'll give you an example. For a long time, there was that 23andMe, I think it's called, like the
ancestry. You take a swab of
you do your cheek swab, and they'll be like, oh, you are this many % from this background or ethnicity, whatever. But they used some of that data and sold it to insurance companies and stuff like that, right? A lot of people don't know that, right? Because there wasn't that transparency around until, I don't know, maybe a few years ago, when people started saying, oh, well, how did my insurance company know that I'm more susceptible to X kind of, I don't know, like a ailment, right? Something that makes you sick or whatever.
Condition.
No, I absolutely agree. Like if you are not paying for something, you are the product. And so I'm okay in paying, but I'm also okay in choosing what to do. And again, if I have the technical knowledge to do something for myself, and I have the time and I have the will, well, I should be able to do it.
Yep.
Now,
Exactly.
speaking of technical knowledge, you work at Google. I'm interested to know, what does someone at Google run Home Assistant on? Have you got like a massive server farm down there that you're running off solar panels, or?
I run it on Raspberry Pi. And
Wow.
because it's the Raspberry 4 right now. And I had many discussions with my colleagues about we should have this Intel computer, or like this Nook, or like yes, I'm good with a Pi 4, unless you need to use the voice features. Raspberry 3, Raspberry 4, it's very good hardware. And still in this approach of home lab, I need to consider that something can go wrong. And so for me, being able to just replace a Raspberry Pi, I always have some replacement pieces waiting for bad things to happen. And so, okay, there is a problem with Home Assistant with the hardware. I have another Raspberry Pi. It's easy, $50. To save your house. I think it's a good price to pay. I have a Raspberry Pi. I simply restore a backup, and I'm good to go after 1 hour. And this is for me a very good gives me security, gives me allow me to go even leave my house for some days with the rest of the family here, and things will work. If they don't work, I know I can easily have a backup, have a workaround, still have the services I need while going through some sort of problem and issue. Because it's also another important aspect, and it's a part of the things that generally people learn. It's like backup. Generally, you do backup after you lose data, not before. And even your friends tell you, "Hey, you should do backup now because before it's too late." You don't believe, okay? And it's important for me to have an house that is resilient. Resilience, it's part of many of my automations are for resilience, to check that everything is good, not simply, hey, this light can only be turned on using a Home Assistant. No, I want to be resilient, and so the light should have a physical component and a digital component. There are very few things in my setup which doesn't have at least two ways to be managed. If there is only one way, it's because they are very advanced and I can live without them. For example, when we said about cooler the house if there is more electricity, it's a nice to have. But if I have some error in the setup, if some automation doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. Okay, but if I want to wake up in the night and turn on a light, and this light doesn't turn on because I can only turn on with a smart plug connected to Home Assistant, blah 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 blah. No, this is something I'm not okay in accepting.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that forms part of your design philosophy, right? There has to be a manual override in your home.
Exactly. Or a plan B, let's put it this way. So when I discuss about hardware, also hardware should have a plan B. What if my Raspberry Pi breaks? Because one of the other very used approaches is to put everything on Proxmox these days, and have 10 different servers, including Home Assistant, on your Proxmox instance. Great, but what if the hardware fails? You will lose everything. Are you ready to this? If you are, it's okay, because maybe there are people that are backing up everything. They have another computer somewhere, and the moment something in the hardware world goes wrong, they can simply change the hardware, restore backup, and they're good to go. I choose my way, and it's with the Raspberry and easy, small other components.
That's awesome. You talked about not being able to do voice on the Raspberry Pi, which again, it's getting better, but you're right, it's not there yet. Are you doing any of the Home Assistant voice stuff today?
I tried. I have a couple of mics, and so because it's not my primary need to control Home Assistant by voice right now. I'm simply looking, experimenting, but I'm not embedded any important voice feature in my production setup. I have something in my testing playground for sure, but in production, no. Right now, no.
Yeah. Okay. And what do you run the Whisper and like all the behind the scenes stuff on the voice? What do you run that on?
I have virtual machines on a couple of computers, and you know, I have all the power I need on these computers.
Yeah. Okay. That's perfect.
I was also waiting a lot because, you know, this idea of having one smart brain in your house. Again, back to the home lab philosophy. You have one server which serves all the rest of the environment. So from the DHCP to the DNS to the file server and so on and so forth. Okay. So the idea of having one very smart component in my house, which will provide intelligence to the rest of the services, it's something I'm really waiting. Unfortunately, you know, there have been different tries from different companies. Now NVIDIA release like a very good hardware I'm waiting for to try that could be this central point of intelligence in your home lab. We are still learning by doing. There isn't a setup I would recommend or a particular hardware I would recommend. For example, I tried in the past the Coral card from from Google. It was very good to do something, but not good to do everything. Now you can put an LLM. You know, the latest since the very beginning, Home Assistant allow you to have like Ollama or other services, not necessarily the ones in cloud, but also the ones you can run locally. Why not having one single server where I put all this intelligence, I put all my data, I put all the context this intelligence needs to know in order to better serve myself, and then spread it out everywhere from, documents I care about, because it would be great to ask Home Assistant, hey, can you remember me where I put this information? And if this central intelligence have access to all my documents through the file server and the different things I do through other services that put data, Home Assistant can totally be the coordinator. I see really Home Assistant as a coordinator of my home life, and we are not yet right now, but I totally see a direction, and as soon as we have good hardware, good standards, we will definitely go there.
Yeah. And I think that's a pretty cool way to look at it, right? It's especially as it relates to AI, LLM, that whole world of it. You just, again, switching gears a little bit, one of the things you mentioned is some automation around Google Meet.
Yes.
What did you do there?
It was a very, sometimes simple things are the most effective. Okay, so I have a couple of lights here, and the automation I did was the moment I do many virtual calls. I use a lot of Google Meet for work. Okay, because I'm the remote element of my team in Italy, so all my work interactions are virtually. Okay, so I spend a good amount of time collaborating with my colleagues, but in VCs. And so the moment I start a VC, my lights turns on, and also there is a light outside of my room, like the usual red on air light, which tells to my kids, hey, you shouldn't enter because your dad is doing a proper work call. And in the past it was me switching on and off all the lights, and also I have a button to turn on and off the outside light. Now it's thanks to a Chrome plugin, a Chrome extension, there is a particular kind of things going on when you start a call, thanks to Google, in Google Meet. I capture this information. I do a web server call to Home Assistant. Home Assistant knows I started a call, a VC, and then do stuff. In the specific case, turn on the light inside of my, in my desk, turn on the light outside. And when I finish the call, another webhook call to Home Assistant, and Home Assistant restore the usual setup when I don't have calls.
That's cool. So there's a Chrome extension running that.
Yes, it's a custom-made Chrome extension able to capture when some element of the DOM are present in the page, and these elements identify I'm having a call, and then calling a web service, which is my Home Assistant, one of my Home Assistant web service.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Is there any native APIs or something that you can query to do that? No way.
I tried, but unfortunately, no.
Okay.
But it would be very, very, very cool. Whenever it's Shelly, when the switches, you can set a webhook to call things when you press a button, whatever. Would be nice if all these like different softwares can do it natively. You can do through workaround. If you are on Linux, Windows, or Mac, we have different tools in the system, or even on your mobile phone. There are plenty of these tools, but they require a little bit of knowledge, and there isn't a standard setup for them. There isn't a standard approach. It's very custom made, and if you look at forums, if you look at what people have done, they have done 10 things in 100 different ways. Okay.
Yes.
So having this, this is about the interoperability, kind of having an interoperable mindset when you build stuff. So all the actions of the product you build should be able to communicate to the world. Oh, this is happening, and so they can talk with each other. It's like API everywhere, having API everywhere, both for input and for output, both from pull and for push information. And this would be nice because then you can integrate way more things among them.
Yeah, that's but and that's where we start getting into like smart home standards and that kind of stuff, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean your like video calls and stuff that doesn't fit the smart home mold will play well, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it seems to me like, the beginning of the internet, where everything was open and everything was built to intercommunicate. And then we have a moment where, a lot of wallet gardens, and yes, products are intercommunicating in the same ecosystem, but not with other ecosystems. And this was to maintain kind of like a market advantage. It would be great if the open home philosophy is about making everything available to everything else. And so if you want, you can connect things. If you don't want, you don't need to connect things. Home Assistant plays this role because it's your central brain, okay? So even if there are many different things, it creates a kind of common standard to interact with these different things. And I really love this element of Home Assistant. Like, regardless of the hardware you have a common standard you can use, a common layer you can use to interact with all of your devices. Okay. And
Right.
then Home Assistant does the dirty job to speak the specific language of the specific device, and also managing all the this is not really working well, so there is a patch in the code, and it's transparent for you, and this is great. Like, brings a lot of simplicity in your setup.
Yeah.
But this is thanks to Home Assistant, and all the code to do this is in Home Assistant. Wouldn't be nice if every single device has this approach? Be very open with the rest of the world in terms of receiving input and providing input. Yeah. And then this can create, and this is also for software. So again, even if you're not part of the smart home world, well, you know what? Why not integrate? I think this is freedom. This is like what we deserve as a consumer of the products we are using.
Yeah, it's choice again, right? Back to your original point.
Exactly.
Now, Alfredo, I'm going to take a little personal indulgence here. So I have just gone ahead and I'm now fully on a Ubiquiti network. So I've got the access points, I've got the Ubiquiti edge router there, all good to go. I'm just in the process now of looking at VLANs, and I would like to know, I can see you've got a bit of VLAN set up in your home. How have you gone about setting up yours? Have you got like IoT devices segregated? What's your little setup look like?
Yeah, it was a long journey in order to arrive where I am today. And the situation today is like, let's start from the basic. Everything is on the same network. Every device can talk with all the rest of the network, can inspect, can scan, and can send data about your network. Security, privacy, home lab, I don't like this approach. And again, if you want to know more, you have to study. I studied a lot. I made a lot of mistakes before arriving to understand what's the right approach I should have applied. Because it's not, again, there are guidelines, but every situation can be different, and you go way, way deeper in this journey. So right now I have like one VLAN for my trusted devices. The computer, the printer, and Home Assistant, my NAS, and other servers. Those are the devices I know they should be trustworthy. Okay, then I cannot be 100% sure, but they should be trustworthy. Then I have the IoT VLAN for all the IoT devices, smart plugs, Google Home devices and the peer sensors working on Wi-Fi and many other stuff. And then I have another layer is for IoT that doesn't need to be connected to internet, but I need to access them. And potentially they don't need to be connected with each other. So for example, cameras or other very sensitive things that should be connected to Home Assistant, or my trusted network should be able to access them, but they shouldn't be able to access with the rest of the network and to talk with each other. So I can put in this segregated network unsecure things, or things that have to be very protected from the rest of the world because can contain very important information for me. For example, my network of cameras.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And these three VLANs goes through Ethernet and Wi-Fi. Because yes, I have devices in both Ethernet, wired and wirelessly connected, and then I have a set of rules to allow these different VLANs to connect with each other. So, for example, all the VLANs, the IoT VLANs and the NOT VLANs, so the one without internet, can connect to Home Assistant, can connect to my DHCP server, can connect to my NAS. That's all. My trusted computers can connect to everything. So I can access from my computer to my camera, but the moment I'm in the camera network, I cannot access to other cameras or to other computers. And when I have a new device to discover or to play with, I generally put it in the very unsecure network. So even if it's a Chinese element I got for $2, so who is paying for this device? I'm sure it won't compromise too much my personal setup.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way to think of it, because I've always struggled. I haven't got down the VLAN route where I want to segregate all my devices, but I'm now well, hang on, what do I do with Sonos speakers, right? I need local control of those speakers, but they also need internet access, but I don't want them to have access to everything else on the network, right? Or maybe only to the NAS where they can read the music from. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And then you have to write a lot of rules in the firewall. So, for example, for all the Chromecast things, there are doors you need to open, and also the MDNS, the repeaters. Again, it's possible. It's definitely possible, because after probably different months of playing with this kind of stuff, I was able to really do what I wanted to do without limitation. But it's difficult. It's really complex setup. It's something that it's totally not for fun, but it's a professional level. So you can sell this knowledge in order to have a proper job. It's not something you learn, okay, yes, a couple of nights and then I'm done, but I will never do this as a real work. No, at this point, you can do this as a real job.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one thing you'll learn when you start doing that is how much stuff breaks. Right, because Alfredo, you actually said it, MDNS, right? And I've been, not recently, but I've been vocal about how much I hate MDNS as a protocol, and because of you stick it on any level of enterprise or even prosumer style gear, and it falls apart. Right, it's great when everything is in the same VLAN and everything it all works, cool. Once you start breaking up those broadcast domains, it starts to fall apart, right? So, and MDNS is notorious for not working, and when you have any sort of piece like that, right? And there are obviously gateways that you can get to say, okay, jump from this network to that network and allow that and stuff like that. But natively, you'll spend a bit of time scratching your head, being like, why isn't this working? It says. The instructions say press this button and it should discover, and it's not discovering. And so welcome to pain that the rest of us feel.
Yeah. And sometimes as for security, you have to take your compromises, because security doesn't exist in abstract. Security exists in the current setup you're looking at. And so in my case, it's okay if the different Chromecast devices can talk with each other. It's not a problem. Okay. And it's not a problem if they can have uncontrolled access to internet, because they are in this middle layer of my VLAN setup. So they can go to the internet and transmit all the information they want. And it's okay, because you have to trust something somehow. in order to decide your security step. Okay, so I at the beginning I tried to put them in the non-IoT, non-internet network, so the lowest setup of my VLAN, the most like restricted, because I said, well, I only need to transmit to these devices my local content, music from my NAS, and also messages. The way Home Assistant interact with them is like generate on the fly the audio file with the text, so text to speech, and then send the audio file to this device for reproduce them. So technically they don't need to have access to internet, but it was so painful even to do the configuration. Okay, now I have to put on the other network, and then it was so painful. I said, you know what, I'm okay if these devices can access to the internet, can talk with each other, can see each other, shouldn't be a big problem. And this is the compromise I took.
We're going to be back with Alfredo in a minute. But for now, if you're looking to upgrade your smart home, you can't go past Zeus. Add Z-Wave long range to your home assistant setup with the Zeus ZST39 USB radio. Their advanced technology operates in dual network mode, combining a reliable mesh system with ultra-fast direct device-to-hub connectivity. And with Z-Wave long-range support, you can get coverage up to 1,300 feet or 400 meters, both indoors and outdoors. And it's extremely secure with unique DSK QR code scanning. The Z-Wave JS integration in Home Assistant enables seamless compatibility with a wide range of brands, all working together through this secure, private, and standardized off-cloud protocol. But that's just the start. Zeus offers a range of affordable and innovative devices, including water leak sensors, water valve controllers, smart plugs, scene controllers, and even color paddles. The color paddles for their scene controllers, dimmers, and switches allow the smart devices to blend seamlessly into your home. For the best prices on all Zeus products, head over to thesmartesthouse.com. That's thesmartesthouse.com. And check out our episode next week where we're going to be talking with Agnes from Zeus, talking about everything smart home related, and of course Zeus and their philosophy in integrating with Home Assistant. I would like to know, you've got a note here about your resilience automations. I'm guessing that's around your smart home. How have you sort of added resilience into your smart home? Because I know I've done a little bit. Yeah,
this is a very good question, and it's still something I'm elaborating on. Every single week I have new ideas, I have something to try. The idea is like, this is great when everything works. Yep. But what to do when something may not work? Okay, how do you discover things are not working? How you control and you act when things are not working? And this is my resilience journey. I call it resilience because it's a form of resilience. It's not resistance. It's not being perfect. It's like, in case something goes wrong, how quick you can recover. This is all about resilience. Okay, this is also true for humans. This is the concept of resilience. And so some of these resilience routines are about checking the status of my devices. Everything it's okay, or hey, there is something that is not available. I have Zigbee thermostats all over the house. What's the status of the battery? Do they reply to ping? Because technically in Home Assistant, when you build your thermostat entity connecting a switch with a thermostat, if the thermostat doesn't work, Home Assistant is okay. Simply won't never start the switch. And you don't know unless you check the dashboard with the thermostat. And so I did like a resilient automation to check the status of all my thermostat. And if one of them is not working, I get a notification. What if I don't have internet connection and I cannot send important notification? So I have like messages going through notifications on Telegram and on my smart speakers in the home that they don't need local network. So if I'm at home and something bad happens and can even be like lack of internet, at least I get some way to be notified via audio instead of like watching like notification on Telegram. And similar is like for controlling the results of template sensors I created. When you go a little bit complex on YAML file, there are better programming languages than YAML. Let's put it this way. We all know.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you're a developer, it's not like, oh, YAML is my best experience, and I know this is the top I can do. This is the very baseline level you can do, and there is way better. Like there are thousands of years of IT evolution, but yes, you need to deal with YAML, and so sometimes you make errors because the Jinja template is not super intuitive, and especially when you start doing complex stuff, you can make errors that goes to unexpected results with some corner case situation you never consider when you debugged your initial code you brought in the template sensor. And so I brought a resilience automation to check these template sensors if they go like undefined or NAN or other stuff.
Right.
So at least I know something is going wrong. Then I can act, but at least I know.
Yeah.
And it's resilience for me is all about that. At least knowing something is going wrong, first step. Second step, in case something goes wrong, what other workaround I have to reach a decent level of service. And third level, still impossible to get there, but who knows for the future, being able to self-heal and self-repair itself.
Right.
Nice. So I'm going to share some of mine because I think we are pretty much done a lot of similar things. So I have 2 levels of system health in my home. One of them being critical, the other one being not so critical, right? So the critical ones I have are like the water leak sensors, right? If there's a water leak sensor that's marked unavailable, I want to know about it because I need those water sensors always online, right? Same thing with like my Z-Wave and any of the door locks, right? If the door locks go unhealthy or they're just not marked as unavailable, they're a critical problem. I need to know, is my door locking or unlocking? I've also found, because of resilience, right? My calendar integration in Home Assistant is actually now a critical thing for me because so much of my home automation requires my calendar to be up to date, right? Whether it's working from home or even if just there is a situation if the calendar integration is not working, some of my automations won't fire and then the house is out of whack, right? And so they'll just mark a problem entity. I think I use templates for these, right? They just go, yep, problem. One that I found the other day was I recently had a problem with my garden lights. So I have an electrical box out in the garden, and my garden lights weren't working randomly. Like one night they would work, the next night they weren't. And it's summer at the moment, or was recently summer down here. I was like, oh, maybe the electricity box is getting overheated or something. So I moved my weather station indoor unit to the electrical box, just USB powered. And that was fine. And the temperature in the box was fine, no problem. I eventually worked out that I had a short in the garden lights. So I fixed that, no problem. But anyway, because I had moved that weather station device outside, in summer it would get really hot in the box and then it would just shut down.
Right.
And the weather component that I'm using, well, because it's powering, I'm using that weather station outside to power like when lights turn off and on in the house because it's got a lux sensor, or does the aircon turn on because it knows if it's cold outside or not. All those automations would stop working. So now I would have the aircon not coming on and it's 35, 36 degrees outside, right? So that becomes a critical problem. So now I have a template entity to then look at, okay, when was the last time my weather station recorded an update? It should record every few seconds, right? And so then I went one level above and I was like, okay, now I'm going to get one of those Sonoff smart USB smart switches, right? Like it just plugs into a USB port and it becomes a Zigbee on-off thing. So now I can have, if the weather station stops reporting, flick the power off and on to that little outdoor module outside and the weather will start reporting automatically and I don't even need to be notified of it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I've done with a lot of smart switches, right? Like if my electricity meter, which is just powered by a Rainforest Eagle, stops reporting, just cycle the power to the Rainforest Eagle and then it should come back online by itself. So yeah, I think we've done a lot of similar things.
Yeah. One thing also added to the setup is like the worst critical case, Home Assistant like restarting. Because you can put a lot of like time automation, like sprinklers, they start and then after 5 minutes they should go off.
Yeah.
But what if for some reason Home Assistant restarts within these 5 minutes? Technically, your sprinklers will go on forever. And so I put like some automation. It's not like only on restarting, like, hey, every X amount of time, check these core components and switch them off. Can be, I got the concept from, when your good night routine. So during the good night routine, you should switch off all the lights. You should put your home in a sleeping state. Why not having a continuous control on what's going on your house, just to check for the few core anomalies you should avoid? And this control is not dependent from any other action you start. Okay, it simply goes on without any other dependency, because the less dependency, the more security. Okay, yes, it's a little bit tricky to program all of this, but again, I told you I'm a developer, so I'm used to this kind of approaches. I'm not, this is what I tell people going to first steps in Home Assistant, for sure not. But when you confront with more advanced Home Assistant users with generally like a technical background, this is the kind of very interesting discussion you can have, because it's not about choosing the right kind of light for your home. It's like, hey, what if things go wrong? What would you do in order to avoid some very disastrous scenario?
Yeah. And usually it's not even what if, right? It's when things go wrong.
Exactly.
What are you going to
do? Exactly.
Right. That's cool. So you talked about some of like the difficulties with your setup as well, right? Like, so I know you mentioned Zigbee versus Wi-Fi devices and stuff like that. Like, tell us a little bit about that. Like, what kind of difficulty is there? What did you find worked well or didn't work well for you?
I think it depends also when, because some issues we had in the past now we are solved. Take for example what Zigbee antenna should I choose? Oh, well, in the past it was about the kind of coordinator you wanted to have. And now, very clear choice, go for Sky Connect, and everything is tested. We didn't have this luxury years ago. And so it was like a choice because it wasn't a default choice. Yes, I had a lot of choice. Yes, because it wasn't a default choice. Today, you still maintain your choice possibilities, but at least you know what should be the default choice if you want to go in an easier way, in an easier direction. And for me, like Zigbee. Zigbee is cool, doesn't require a lot of hardware, it's a mesh network, very low power consumption, it's great. But what about the Zigbee implementations of Aquara devices? We know they don't respect all the standards. And what about other devices, IKEA stuff? So, of course, Home Assistant played and plays, as I told you previously, a very important role in unifying everything. Okay, and below Home Assistant, in this case, the Zigbee to MQTT or other software you want to use to coordinate everything. But choosing the wrong antenna or even connecting it very close to the hard disk to my Raspberry, and so we are going back to the physical world, something I ate, I told you, created issues. And so my initial Zigbee device worked, but not always. And when I start to add more and more devices, because then you say, okay, this is the way, let's double down on this way. I cannot have 3 different ways to connect my smart plugs. I should have one way. Also because of course you can have choice, but why keep complexity when you can reduce it? And then the Zigbee failed way more times. Not connected to a particular update, not connected to some sort of electrical noise you can have in the house. I also did Wi-Fi on this channel, not on channel 11, because channel 11 is what Zigbee is using for BTC and stuff. So I also went down to this level to understand in the spectrum, the wave spectrum, how can I segment frequencies in order to avoid overlaps. And at the end, and so I was very tempted to switch everything to Wi-Fi. You know what? I have Wi-Fi, let's use it. But then I discovered it was just a matter of the antenna, the physical antenna I used. I changed with another antenna, and boom, everything worked. Not even a single problem, a solid rock setup. Wow, it's just because $20 key, a piece of hardware that totally burned hours and hours of my time and hours of joy of working with my smart home. Okay.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's funny how like it could just be that little thing that kind of starts to break a lot of other things, right? And it's a little crappy $20
Exactly.
dongle sometimes, right?
And you didn't know this is a try and catch process. So yes, it worked when I added one device, two devices, three devices. The fourth device I added that now doesn't work anymore. You know what? Probably is the fourth device. No, at the end you discover it's not the fourth device. It's maybe something you have done, something else. In the past, you don't even remember. This is also why when I do this kind of stuff, I log every single thing I do, every single command I launch, and when, because I don't have a good memory. I start from the assumption I'm very bad in remembering stuff. I cannot count on my memory. And so I train myself to log everything I do. So the moment I say, what happened 2 days ago? I do this. No, I'm not sure if what I've done. Let me check. It's like code. Code doesn't lie. Let's check the logs, because logs doesn't lie. And but again,
Spoken
this is
like
like
a
an
true
habit.
developer.
I mean, I consider myself one, so yes.
Yeah. I love it.
Speaking of Zigbee, my issue was just Wi-Fi channel interference, right? Like I wasted so many times going around repairing battery devices that just dropped off my Zigbee network, and all I needed to do was just move my Wi-Fi channels around a little bit, and now everything's hunky-dory, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, totally feel you.
Yeah, another it's not like, I wouldn't call it like a difficulty, an issue. It's more a challenge. Again, speaking like I'm a true developer. It's not always true, but developers love logic, doesn't love design, or doesn't have skill in the graphical world. Let's put it this way. Okay, It's not always true, but it happens. Let's say it happens very often. And dashboard, it's a key component of your smart home. Because the logic you put, all the cool things you do in code, it's okay. But if they don't have a way to interact, and also like when you live together with other people, it cannot be just your dashboard. It cannot be just your UI. It should be something useful for everyone in the house. So building this dashboard has always been a challenge for me, because I'm the kind of person, okay, put a square button here, 20 square buttons, and I'm done. No, this is not the way a software should, a UI should be designed. And especially when you have like your partner and your kids and other people, you should find something that is good for everyone, or it's a good compromise for everyone. And when you look for dashboards and suggestions on dashboard, you literally open the Pandora's box. You have a 3D rendered house in real time versus, oh yes, this is just a grid with things here and there. And dashboard that changes based on the situation. So you don't have a single dashboard, you have a morphic entity which adapts to what's happening in your house. But then if you see the code, it's like a gigantic dashboard with an incredible amount of if and conditions. So very complex to maintain and to code, but looking beautifully when it runs. So I still need to find my, let's say, dashboard foo, my like what I want to be with dashboard. And right now experimenting. I also like a lot of the work that has been done and they are doing today, the Home Assistant team, to improve the dashboard experience, because we all know Home Assistant started as a project for developers. So yes, let's do everything by code. Do not put any UI to do your automations, do your style. Now we are moving way to a graphical world when you can interact with the mouse on the things you want to do. But still, I would really love to have maybe in the future standard recommendations on default dashboards, blueprints for dashboards. So you want to automate lights. Of course, you can do whatever you want, because we don't know if it's a smartphone, it's a tablet, it's a computer. But in case your device, your screen is more or less this size and you need more or less this amount of lights to control, and this is data that can be easily gathered from the stats Home Assistant offers. This is the blueprint we suggest you. This is the default dashboard to do this kind of stuff. This would be something, very difficult to do, with probably not so much value right now, but maybe 3-4 years down the road, when Home Assistant will have an even bigger community, a lot of supports, a lot of people, would be nice to have blueprints for dashboards.
But even, I'm thinking like even LLMs, right? Like they'll be able to read your entities and go, here you go, based on your entities here and the type of dashboard you want to make, here's what I recommend for you, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a cool use, actually. It's I always struggle with it, right? Because it's exactly what you said. You have all these people that make these like amazing dashboards, and they're all over the the communities pages, Facebook, whatever, right? And you look through it and you're like, oh, I want that, and then you spend hours to do this. And for me, my philosophy has always been, I almost never open the UI to do anything, but I'll still spend all this time because again, for me, the automation is what has to happen. And then if I need to augment, I'll use voice. And then if I'm going into the UI, it's because, I need to make a change of something, right? Or something's broken or something like that. It's more around something is severely wrong, right? And so I need to make that change. So, but I will still spend the time to do this, and then I'm like, why did I do this? Like, I don't even, I'm barely gonna use this, but I've put in, like, I don't know, a lot of hours into getting a beautiful dashboard or something that I find works really well for me. And I'm like, but I don't even do this, right? You go down this rabbit hole, you spend all this time, and then I'm like, that was dumb. Why
It's
did I do
brainwashing.
that?
It's like brainwashing series.
Yeah.
It's like brainwashing dashboards made by other people. One of the, there are different creators that, sometimes review dashboards, they do this dashboard contest. Is it useful? No. Is it nice? Yes. So,
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I have a tablet now. I have one, right? And it's in the kitchen. So I'm like, okay, if that's going to be, let's call it public facing, right? Then at least it should look nice. But that's the first time I've actually had a valid use case for building a really nice UI, right? Other than that, it's like, it's me. My wife never opens the Home Assistant app. Usually I have to go in once every, like, I don't know, 60 days or something and open it so it doesn't like auto archive or whatever on her phone. Right? And it's
but this is where I think, dashboard can be released. I totally agree with your philosophy. The smart home should be smart. So it's not like giving you more surfaces to control what you have in your house. It's allowing you to think less about what's happening in your house and automate whatever you can do. So this is like the philosophy you should approach. Then this is also the common usage of your house. If you're alone, if you are with an, let's say, adult like you, or totally trusting you on everything that's happening in your house, it's great. You can do whatever you want. But there are some things that are also useful for the rest of the family. I give you some example. Can I use the while I'm cooking, maybe during winter, can be the AC going on? Can I use some other electric device? Maybe like I remember in the past when I was a kid and my parents were like, when I had hair on my head, like they were like drying them and boom, the power went off because at the same moment my mom was using the oven and my dad didn't know. Okay, I want to avoid this like situation, and so like instead of checking and not be sure, now my partner control how much electricity it's still available. And she knows, okay, now I can use the dryer to dry the hair of the kids. Or no, I stop cooking for a moment because, all our house is electric. So I can stop cooking. I need to stop cooking if they want to have a shower. And then I need to dry the hair. These kind of simple things, dashboard are still useful. And then again, it's up to you. Do you want to just put the electrical consumption and rely on the other person knows how much electricity you can have and do the difference in the mind? Or simply put yes, you can turn on a dryer or no, you cannot. This is up to you. Or my kids, they want to listen to music. Do you want to give them full access to your entire music library? Maybe why not? Or you want to give them 3-4 buttons based on the moment they are. I'm very happy. I need to do homework, or I need to concentrate, or I want to relax. You give them 4 buttons and you do a lot of presets for them. It's still like home automation, like smart home, because you are deciding for them. You don't need to have to decide every single step, but still there is a UI component they need to like in order to use, or they need to understand in order to use.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's but that is a cool thing to think about, right? And it's like how do I automate music? How do I do that kind of stuff? And that's that is pretty neat.
Another element, and this is after a conversation I had with a colleague of mine, is accessibility. What if you need to create something in order to make what you have in your house more accessible to people which have a different skill set than you have? And this is where also dashboard or voice or physical devices can really help you, because basically you embrace a different paradigm to interact with your smart home, and it's based on different skills people have. Okay, this person can only speak, this person doesn't
Yeah,
see, this person can only push big buttons, and so on and so forth. And this is
yep,
where I think dashboard and voice and other stuff can really help in the accessibility, broader accessibility of your smart
totally,
home.
totally.
I would like to know, for future plans, anything you're looking forward to, like automating, or what's next on the hit list?
um, I'm like to the point of putting a tablet in my living room on the wall. Okay, so I want to make my house more nicer to check for the rest of the family, because of course we already have the software on like our mobile phones, but what about the kids? They are like 9, they are 6. I don't want to give them a smartphone right now, so they should be able to access the house for the things they need without giving them full control, because they can always poke around and make disasters with the admin dashboard I have only for me, for example. So understanding what should be the interactions if I put, let's say, home assistant in the living room, access to home assistant in the living room. So I want to observe what what they will do, what they need, what they can do, they cannot do today, and so on and so forth. And second part is like this LLM journey. Like it's not only connecting home assistant with an LLM. It's straightforward. It's, let's say, a solved problem. But how can it really inject local intelligence to my smart home setup?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
So are you thinking more along the lines of, I don't want to call it big data, but like just give it, hey, here is all of my states of everything for the last 6 months, whatever that
Whatever.
time is. Based on that, come up with intelligible, not automations, but what would you do to, like, okay, great, every time I walk into this room, this light I typically turn on, so just do that. Is that the idea?
Potentially, yes, but it's more about I need to work on this project document. I have 2 hours of focus time. Help me to concentrate. And telling this to Home Assistant, maybe the lights will go down, maybe the music will, a particular kind of music will be picked up. And you can code these in a very static way. You have 3 concentration playlists and rotate them. You can do by code. But what if I delegate this task to the LLM, telling, hey, this is the last 6 months of music I've listened to. This is like what I prefer to listen when I have to do this kind of stuff, this kind of particular work, and do the rest for me. Fill the last mile for me, maybe in a very standard way, or maybe being a little bit creative, maybe allowing me to discover something new while don't go too far from the borders you should have understood what they are. I need to clean up the house. Okay, if you need to clean up the house, you know what? You will turn on the windows very soon because it's a way to clean up the air. So, let's switch down the AVAC. Let's put the right music, generally pump music. So you are not, or maybe it's your latest podcast you want to listen while you're cleaning the house. So we put the podcast in all the speakers you have. So regardless where you are in the house, you can still listening seamlessly to the podcast. So these kind of things that you can code them up to a certain point. But what if you can simply pass a lot of habits? And habits, I mean, you get them from sensors, and have the LLM elaborate for you and propose you something innovative, or making choices without the need to you make and write code, write if then for all the choices you can make. This is what I'm thinking. And then, of course, like combining a little bit of data to discover novel scenarios. But, this is data exploration. So you have to explore, you have to try, you have to make a lot of mistakes in order to find, oh, wow, this is something new and unexpected. And yes, I want to use it for my stuff.
Yeah. So that's a cool, way to look at AI, LLM, that whole realm of what you want to do with it, right? So that's cool. How, just how long do you think, or how far away do you think we are from that kind of thing being a reality, or being able to do it? For, let's give you two scenarios. One is for someone like yourself who is very, plugged in with that world, obviously with your work and a lot of that stuff that you do, and then two, for the layperson, right? Like for someone who isn't a tech wizard, kind of like who doesn't deal with that every day.
It seems like the conversation with the other parents in the school of my kids.
Hmm.
You should. I discovered these I don't know, ChatGPT, Gemini, or whatever, or even
Yeah,
DeepSeek now. A lot of people, and you listen to them and you say, yes, I'm doing agentic workflow to automate the code I write. Okay, so there are kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
different levels. I would say for people like me, we are still the entire ecosystem is evolving very quickly day after day. If you think what we
yeah,
had 6 months ago, 1 year ago, and what we have today in terms of capabilities, in terms of availability, in terms of cost, in terms of latency, it's incredibly different. You know,
yeah,
and every 6 months, even less, we have kind of breakthrough approach to this AI world. We move from, okay, it's possible to do inferences, to let's stuff as much data as we can in the models. And now we are moving to agentic workflows with lots of specializations and, different
mhm,
coordination among like very specialized agents. And, there are many other things coming, but you totally see changes of paradigms every 6 9 months, more or less. Uh, a lot has to be done in terms of privacy and data. We discuss about, should I give everything to some company or should I keep everything in my house? And for now, it's okay to have a computer when you run your inference engine and you put all the data, but it's something I do and you will do differently and you will do differently. What are the standards? There are now emerging some standards to connect and describe the languages, common languages for LLMs in order to interact and to better describe processes. So I think we still need to do a lot of work in order to arrive to some sort of agreed situation. And this is a work that we need to be do because it's very technical. So the other people will stay very far from this kind of innovations. Once we have these building blocks, I don't think it will be too much complex to standardize and make available to everyone because people won't care how they work behind the scene or under the hood. They will simply use them, consume them as they are consuming
yeah,
today many LLMs.
yeah. You don't need to know how it works. You just need it to work.
Exactly.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, Alfredo, I mean, just before we wrap up, one of the things you talk about, and you briefly mentioned it earlier too, is how you teach people about Home Assistant or to use Home Assistant. What does that look like? Because I'm sure a lot of folks on the podcast here also end up getting like, oh, cool. How did you do that? Like, what do I need to be able to turn on my lights automatically and do all of this stuff? How do you go about educating your friends or peers or family or whoever?
Yeah, this is it's definitely a journey and something that it doesn't come for free. So you can share knowledge with your friends, with your peer, with other people, maybe over a coffee chat, maybe during a dinner, but you definitely cannot share your knowledge about Home Assistant in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an
Yeah,
hour you have with the
yeah,
others. Okay. You need to be way more intentional. And this is also very aligned with my usual learn, build, share circle I always try to follow. So I learn something, I build something with what I learn, and then I share as a form to giving back to the rest of the community that of course helped me a lot in my learn and build journey. And this is why I started to do trainings on Home Assistant in a very community approach. So going to conference without asking for money, or traveling to places. Hey, to the local community. You are a technical community. I know this is not a usual topic you discuss, but what about speaking about how a developer can automate the home? And generally, people are interested because it's kind of side knowledge. They love it, and this is how I generally go. And I notice the big challenge is like Home Assistant and home automation has two core components, a software component and a hardware component. So you cannot talk about the smart home without talking about both of them. So in every kind of training I do, I need to approach Home Assistant from a software perspective, how to use this software, but also how to build your house. What are the core, the MVP, the physical MVP in order to use this software? And this is where a lot of people are struggling, because installing a software, it's a breeze. But choosing your power plugs, connecting them to the power, and building your Zigbee network or connecting through Wi-Fi in order to have them representing in Home Assistant, it's kind of long in terms of experience, but it's also where people get happiest, because yes, this is the dashboard, those are the components, okay, boom. This is the smart plug, this is how it works, boom. But the moment they can see, oh, I can press a button on the dashboard and it turn on off the light, this is where they say, oh, now I get excited, now I get the new kind of power I may have in my hands. So arriving to this point as fast as possible is generally the preferred way. I decide over time. Say, okay, how can I structure a training on Home Assistant? At the beginning, I was presenting Home Assistant, the philosophy, and then I added some component. And at the end of the training, I was able to turn on and off a light or send a command to my Google Home or whatever. Now it's the totally like the opposite. You know what? Look here. I press a button and the light goes on and off. What's happening behind the scene? Let's decompose what's happening behind the scene, and so I can keep people engaged and guide them through the software journey and the hardware journey, because especially for developers, they are very used to software, and adding this additional component, it's very difficult. And another complexity is about, again, choice and flexibility. They ask me, hey, Alfredo, what should I do? What should I buy? I have no idea, because there are so many things, and sometimes it's also, I presented I was like in Rwanda for like work reasons, and I had a Home Assistant training there. Okay, I had to completely reconsider the availability of devices there. Okay, so I started with the Raspberry 3 because it was easy, more or less, to find the Raspberry 3 there. Absolutely almost impossible to get more advanced components. In terms of smart plugs, many brands weren't available there, and I went for something almost homemade by a local company I found there a couple of days before my training. So you have to adapt to the geography, and when people ask you, hey, what should I choose? Say, it's a very good question, because to be honest, you need to tell me more, or you need to know not choose will be perfect, and it will be always a compromise.
Yeah. And it's interesting because there's always stuff that sometimes they don't even know, right? Like, again, like when we started out, you talked about telling your electrician, hey, I need a deeper wall box. Sometimes, hey, I've lived in this house for 30 years and I don't know what kind of wall box I have, because, will a smart switch fit in here or will it not, or whatever, right? So sometimes it's that too, right?
Yeah. Or when they want to automate after the fact. I brought these 10 smart lights and now want to control all of them together. Okay, where, what brand, what model? Oh, this unknown brand, I paid basically nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, good luck to integrate into Home Assistant. Or I have this brand. Okay, yes, you can install, you can flash another firmware. Flash what? Okay, so we need to go one step back. But this is like the common issues. At the end, it's still a great journey. But I would say, compared to the other kind of technical education I do for my job, this hardware element, it's quite challenging, to be honest, because it adds a lot of complexity, a lot of different possibilities, and makes more complex to understand what you're doing, especially to plan for the future, because you're spending money on buying your hardware. You don't want to. I spent $100 in order to buy 4 smart plugs, just to discover you have to rebuy them because they don't fit your particular scenario, or they don't connect with other things, or they don't work. They don't have a power meter, and so you cannot do like choices based on how much energy you want to consume.
Yeah, that's a very good point too.
Well, Alfredo, that has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your journey today. We will leave. Is there any links that we can put in for you, actually? Do you want us to put any links?
Yeah, I think I have my website. We have LinkedIn. So these two could be more than enough.
Well, Alfredo, thank you so much for sharing your journey today. We're going to leave links to your website where people can contact you, LinkedIn as well. But yeah, thank you. It's been awesome, and thank you for sharing your knowledge with your peers and community. It's great to see that you're out there teaching home assistant and everything we have for the Open Home Foundation as well. Thank you.
My pleasure. I mean, learn, build, share. We are all together in this journey.
That's right.
I love that.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.